Good evening, everybody. It is indeed my pleasure to be at IIT Gandhinagar and meet some of the brightest sparks of the Indian growth story. I'm Kamya Verma, an anchor by profession, and amongst the many other shows that I have done, Zig Wheels, which is a show about cars and bikes, definitely tops as one of my favorites. No points for guessing then. I'm as excited as all of you to get a perspective and an insight on the subject. Can the automobiles industry keep up with the rising fuel prices, growing consumer demand? And more importantly, how will the industry address the environmental concerns? Many people are reluctant to give up their cars or reduce the number of hours they spend on the road, knowing that the automotive industry has made key changes that would help to reduce the harmful emissions produced by vehicles. But are those enough? Is the progress in automobile industry aiming to make the industry more eco-friendly? Well, with that thought, let me take this opportunity to introduce our panelist for the discussion. Mr. Mangesh Khare of KPIT Cummins, Mr. Arun Pratap Singh, Senior Vice President of Electrotherm, Ms. Anumita Roy Chaudhari, who is the Director of Center for Science and Environment India, Mr. S.V. Sudarshan, General Manager of Daimler India, and finally, Professor Amey Karnik from the Mechanical Engineering Department. Please put your hands together once again and welcome all our panelists. A very warm welcome to all of you. Well, the students are very excited to know your thoughts. So to start with, I will ask one important question to each of our panelists, which is, what do you think of the automobile industry at the moment? How is it faring? Which direction are we headed into? And is the government doing enough to keep up with the pace? Anumita, would like to get your thoughts first.
A very important question that you have raised, really. And especially someone like me, who is really the odd one out here, it is a civil society really communicating with the community of engineers for solution to something that we truly believe is turning out to be one of the most critical public health issue in this country today, which is automobile pollution. And what really worries us is the quality of air that we breathe. And with that, what we're seeing, that the rapid pace of motorization. Take a city like Delhi, where you already have 6.5 million vehicles, adding 1,200 vehicles a day, you can understand the pace of it. And the new research which is showing that what is really extremely harmful is your proximity and how close you are to the pollution. And automobile pollution is what you're breathing day in and day out, because exhaust emissions come out in your breathing zone. Now, if that is the scenario, then the question that we have for the automobile industry is that globally, when we do the mapping of very exciting technology innovations that we see in each and every segment of automobile application, why is it that its uptake here in India is so slow? And if we have to benchmark today the level of technology that we have to meet the public health concern, and if that benchmark we put it very simply as Bharat Stage 4 and Bharat Stage 3 emission standards in India, then despite the glib talk that goes around about how modern the vehicles and the cars are today, but Bharat Stage 4 and Stage 3 are actually 12 to 6 years behind what Europe is meeting today. And that really worries us, that the motorization which is now taking off in our part of the world is, and if that happens at that level of technology, and given all the concerns related to its toxicity of that emissions, and there are many special concerns and very unique concerns in India today. If you look at the nature of that motorization, what first worries us is one that the very rapid expansion of diesel use, and you know how the diesel vehicles are increasing today. But you may have also heard what WHO has said in June this year. They have actually officially, for the first time, very formally said that reclassified diesel emissions as class 1 carcinogen. Now, if that is the scenario, we know that globally, clean diesel solution to diesel toxicity has already emerged. Solution exists. But as the question to ask me was that, do we have the policy? Is the government doing anything about it? And that's what really angers us, because even though we know the technology solutions exist, but we are not setting the terms of that regulation to make the automobile industry bring the solution to our market. And that is really causing us the great worry, because now the growth, the economic growth, the new story that is emerging, but that should not happen at such an enormous public health cost.
So, Professor Amey, you would know the inside story as you have been a part of the industry. Do you think the organizations are doing enough to address the issue?
So, one thing I agree that there are a lot of technologies that are being developed, but at the same time, everything comes with a price. But at the same time, everything comes with a price. So, whenever we run any optimization for it, if an engineer is purely running the optimization, it would be with some engineering parameters. But at the end of the day, the optimization also runs with cost. And I guess that's where I would agree that government has a role to play if it really wants to twist the arm of the consumer to pay the money in order to buy the right technology, right? At the same time, auto companies probably can advertise things a little better. You see all these ads about green cars, right? Well, they may not be actually green, but the way it presents, it feels that the consumer wants to buy more green technology, right? So I guess government has a role to play. Whether it's playing adequate role or not out here in India, I'm not very sure.
Mr. Sudarshan, you are the president of SAFE, which is Society of Automotive Safety and Environment. Tell us about the initiatives your organization has been taking.
Good. I hope Anumita will not kill me here. Yes, I did make a presentation some time back. I have shown to the same audience about what are the major initiatives from SAFE. Basically, road safety involves three things: man, machine and the environment. 80% of the accidents happen because of man error. Technology, whatever we give on the vehicle for safety, 2%, 3%, 4%, that's it. The remaining is again the environment. If are the road payments okay, banking is okay or not, roads are well lit or not, so on and so forth. So this 80% is something which we should concentrate on. Manufacturers are doing a lot of things about safety. Fine. How many people wear the seat belt? I don't know. So this is where we need to concentrate. So that is where SAFE is there. So Society of Indian Automotive Manufacturers, SIAM, is a body which is more concentrating, I think Anumita will agree with me also, on business. Right? As Professor said, if it makes a business sense to give a seat belt, we give it. Else we will not. Because the customer who buys the vehicle is also a businessman. If it makes a business sense to buy a vehicle with the seat belt, he buys. If not, he does not buy. However, certain things which are certainly, maybe that person does not realize how important it is, but the manufacturers do realize, but because of business sense we don't give it, then it has to be mandated. environment, all this Euro 1, Euro 2, BS1, BS2 norms are one of this kind. As you go up on the stringency level of environment, fuel efficiency goes down. This is a normal thumb rule, everybody understands. So that's why the operators will not like it. But for the societal reasons, Professor also said we should look at the cost. What cost? Cost of the society, or cost of the operator on his daily? Both costs we have to look at it. And it is the duty of the government to look at both. From SIAM, what we said is, okay, SIAM is a body which is more focused on the business aspects of it. So, but SIAM members do have a very, very important corporate social responsibility, and this, if you mix it up with the business, then it does not happen well. One. So we said that let us create one separate organization. That's how SAFE was created. It was created somewhere in the late 90s. It was created, and then as a small group, SAFE has been working, not much of propaganda about it, but lot of programs only to address this 80%. Go and educate people, sensitize the importance of discipline. Basically, please follow many things which are available, but if you use it, it is going to be useful. So going from small school children to the fleet operators to the drivers. We have also conducted programs with rickshaw drivers because they are also road users. But we limit it to only these kind of road users because in India even four-legged animals are road users. We don't train them. That's all. Maybe if we train them, they will be more disciplined. We don't do that. This is what SAFE is actually focusing on. This 80%. How are we going to do it? With this, we hope there will be a good amount of improvement, but it's a long program. One has to be patient to look at it. I hope I have the patience.
Appreciate your thoughts on that. Arun would like to ask you, what are the challenges that the government is facing, or rather the automotive industry is facing because of the government in this industry? Arun, yes. Would like to know what are the other challenges the automotive industry has been facing in the current scenario?
Firstly, I'd like to correct my position. I represent electric vehicles, which is not the mainstream automobile industry. And as far as electric vehicles in this country is concerned, government is working on a policy which is called the National Electric Mobility Mission Plan, wherein government is investing around 14,000 crores for development of electric vehicles in this country. And we feel that once electric vehicles come into in the market aggressively supported by the government, then the pollution which Madam was referring to earlier would not happen to the extent which it is happening today. And the people who are businessmen, as Mr. Sudarshan said, will be able to get a product which will give them, which will satisfy them the basic need of transportation. So coming from our side, from the electric vehicle side, we'll say that yes, there's a work which is going on from the support of electric vehicles. But if representing the automobile industry per se, I feel that government is not doing the things rightly, in the sense that the overall policy decisions which they've taken, which has led to almost 30% or 20% drop in the two-wheeler market, four-wheeler market, except the SUVs and the UVs are seeing a decline. So from the industry perspective, government is not doing enough.
And the government is seeing a decline in the sales.
Yes, they are seeing the decline.
All right. Mangesh, you are from the manufacturing side. A lot of pollution is also being created as a car is produced. What are the initiatives being taken at that end?
First, before I respond to your question, let me correct. I am not from manufacturing directly, but we are creating a product called Rivolo, which is an aftermarket hybrid product. So I will talk about it later. And before I respond, let me first appreciate the way it is organized. I really thanks IIT Gandhinagar for doing excellent organization. So, I mean, this certainly reminded me my days in the IIT Mumbai, and I could see that energy, a lot more energy here. So, I mean, keep it up. Now coming to our discussion. First, I would like to take up the point which Anumita has mentioned about the Euro 3, Euro 4 and Euro 5 and Euro 6 norms. I have worked many years in developing technology for the engines to meet these. But the real issue is that one is that you cannot bring the technology just like that, because it has to be sustainable in the country. And for sustainability, I think there are three areas which one has to look for. One is environment, which is very important. But of course there is economics and there is a social part to it. So all three are the pillars before you make any solution sustainable. And for automotive it is very important. I mean, if a car, you see, he is in the electric bikes. If you price it wrongly, nobody will buy it. We are not ready to pay even few hundred rupees more. If you take a bike. So that is the economic part of it. Now, in terms of technology, even if we get a vehicle which is Euro 5 or Euro 6 to run on the roads of Delhi, we still have the same pollution, because one has to understand how you get these certification. These certification are with respect to certain driving cycle. That means that you take a typical way the person drives the vehicle, and then you calculate the emissions, and then you say, okay, I meet Euro 3 or Euro 4, or now we have a Bharat stage 3 and stage 4. But in India, we have such a infrastructure in the country that whatever Euro norm you get, you will always have a pollution. So it is not about the technology. I think here I would say, if you want to really make it sustainable and see the improvement, there has to be a very good collaboration between the three pillars, what I would say. One is of course the industry, automotive industry, they bring the technology. Then there is a government who sets certain norms and certain regulations, because those are big drivers. Unless we force, government says you want Bharat stage 4, of course the companies won't bring it. And the third aspect is the innovation and the research. And that's where I think the institute like IIT are going to play an important role in future. But as a country, yes, we are certainly going to make it viable. There is no doubt about it. Only thing is that there has to be a good collaboration between all these three parts. Now, sorry, I'm taking a little bit more time. But coming back to your question about what we are doing as an organization. So, automotive is a very, very difficult product when it comes to market. So what we have done is that we cannot switch directly to an electrical. Because you might have read in the paper or newspaper, okay, if electrical vehicle comes in, everything will be solved. There is no pollution, there is no sound pollution, there is no emissions, but it is much easier said than done. So what we have done is, as a company, last 4 years we have been working on developing a product called Rivolo. And if you look into Google, you will see the details. But the main part of this product is that it is an intermediate solution before we go into electric. And what we have considered all three aspects, as I mentioned. One is economics, so it is much cheaper compared to the products available worldwide, and it will lead to 30% improvement in efficiency, and at the same time it will lead to 30% improvement in the emissions. So that's the attempt from the industry, and I think this will continue.
All right, so a lot of initiatives being taken from all the representatives of the industry. Anumita, you mentioned that the government is not doing enough. Do you think the automobile industry is doing enough? Do you think the consumers out there are doing enough to save the environment?
Let's look at it this way. Every time we talk about improving technology, the argument that is always thrown back at us is actually cost, which we just discussed, right? And we agree that India is a very price-sensitive market, but let us also understand from the global and Indian experience that nowhere in the world, because of technology improvement, because of improvement in emission standards, vehicle market has slowed down or gone down. Vehicle numbers are expected to increase and are increasing, and they're going to be explosive in our part of the world. And especially now, when India is very consciously trying to develop India as an auto hub, and lot of fiscal and official incentives are getting tied with that, it makes a lot of sense to link up that new investment with stringent emission standards, as well as, and that is the most unfortunate part, it is just not about emissions. it is also about energy efficiency, especially now when India is really facing very serious energy security threat. But it is absolutely unfortunate that even today, when we are producing vehicles at such rapid pace, India does not have fuel economy standards or fuel efficiency standards. Now, it is very important that the government therefore steps in to take both the decisions together right now. As of now, Indian automobile industry has not been given any target for the next stage of improvement. So after meeting the Euro 3 and Euro 4, there is nothing in the timeline now for the automobile industry, so which means they can continue to produce for the next decade without improving the technology any further. Now that is totally unacceptable, because let us keep in mind that even though we blame the old vehicles on the road for pollution, but this decade, the number of vehicles that we are going to add are going to be several times more than the old generation vehicles. And if the numbers are so big and the new edition is not done on the basis of clean and efficient technology, that means you are locking up enormous amount of pollution for next 2 to 3 decades now. That's why it is very important that the government should take the decision right now. And the other issue is that we understand that the cost is an issue, and especially not so much in the mainstream technology, but the genre of technology which you have just mentioned, the hybrid and the electric. Because this is also the time when we will have to make that big transition, that paradigm shift to a totally new genre of technology. We have really, I think, flogged the traditional IC engine to the best that it can give globally. So now to be able to make that shift, the cost of transition, and for that we need very innovative fiscal strategy. Government should have a strategy in place that through taxation and whole range of other fiscal incentive to reduce that cost of transformation. So therefore, let us not just say that it's going to cost lot more, so let us not do it. That is really not the solution. But if we know that we have to do it, then let us find the solution to do this. And that's where we need to be today.
So talking about hybrid and electric cars, Arun, you're the best person to talk to about this. Do you think electric cars is the way forward to address this issue? What are its benefits and disadvantages?
Giving a very one-line answer to this would be a little difficult. One needs to understand that transportation is a basic human need, and it is short distance, long distance, intermediate distance, emergency need, for just going for fresh air, or some basic need in terms of going to office or daily chores. So my sense is that this industry has not evolved because automobile per se is a complex product. It is something, a moving machine, right? So when it is moving, it is. That's what I was discussing with Mangesh earlier. That a product which is moving in the hand of the customer who's going to use it the way he wants, that makes a product very, very complex. And therefore, technology evolution here has not taken place. As far as the powertrain was concerned, people had limited themselves to gasoline and diesel for a long time. Given the concerns coming because of the depletion in fossil fuel availability, if you look at, people have started working on various technologies like ethanol, gas engines, then comes hybrid, and people are also talking about fuel cells, which is at least a decade ahead of us. So the way I would like to see it, for shorter distances, people might be using electric vehicles. For intermediate distances, they would be using, or at long distances, but on a daily basis, they'll be using hybrid because the range is required more. And for longer distances or emergency needs, they will be looking at pure gasoline vehicles. So that's how the thing will transition. But just to make a point, what Madam was saying, till 2010, India was using 650 tons of oil equivalent. And by 2020, we are going to use around 1300 tons of oil equivalent. And that's where the understanding is there in the planners of this country, and therefore they're talking of electric vehicle mission plan, wherein this electric vehicle is getting supported. And we expect around 20% of the vehicles being sold in the market will be electric. So that much reduction of fossil fuel will happen. And I would not like to put everything on the government, because as customers, I feel that we also have responsibility. When we have a choice, we know that we'll only travel this much, and there is some efficiency coming in because of electric vehicle. We should also be cautious that why don't I buy a smaller vehicle? Why shouldn't I buy a nano? I am not from Tata's, I'm representing Electrotherm, so don't misunderstand me. But if I have got I need a smaller vehicle, shorter distances to travel, I'm comfortable with Nano, but just to show off, I go up and buy a 10 lakh vehicle. I buy an SUV which is not required because I had to impress my neighbor. So those things are our responsibility. Pushing everything on the government, saying the government has to do it, they have to have a bigger roads, cleaner air policy, that's being very unfair on them. So we should be, we should be cautious in taking our own decisions, and accordingly, industry will do its bit. It's not that. Industry is responsible. The people who are coming from the society who are there in the industry, they want to take good decisions. Electrotherm started on electric vehicles in 2006. Reva has been working on electric vehicles till 1995-96. So it's not that people from the industry side have not been doing their bit. But then the responsibility is with everybody. And I would see that future is electric. Going ahead, 10 years down the line or 20 years down the line, you'll find more electric vehicles on the road than the fossil fuels.
Mangesh, you've been nodding in agreement with Arun. If you compare the Indian market with the international market purely in terms of electric vehicles, what do you have to say about it?
Let me understand your question. You are referring to Indian market compared to the market worldwide?
That's right.
For the electric vehicles?
For the electric vehicles.
Yeah, so here I would say that India has an advantage compared to other countries because we are just started growing in automotive, so we can skip certain steps. So in terms of electric mobility or having an electric vehicle, certainly we are well poised to make that choice. But again, as Arun has mentioned, it is certainly not it is not in near future, because the number of electric vehicles currently sold are less than 1% in the world, and it would take another decade for us really to make an impact where we see an impact on the environment and the industry because of the electric mobility. Because there are a lot of technologies which need to get really developed for electric vehicle, and that is where, like for example, the biggest problem in bringing electric vehicle to market is a battery and battery management. How will you manage batteries? How will you recycle them? Because if you say per se electric vehicles are not that clean, they are not completely 100% clean, because you need to address the issue of the batteries, how we are going to handle. So all these technologies have to evolve, and looking at the automotive industry and the way it grows, it is going to take a decade before you can see something.
Okay, so like Arun mentioned, it's also about showing off to your neighbor which car you are driving. You would be the right person to talk about luxury car segment. Are your consumers environmentally conscious?
First, I may not be the right person to talk about cars. I'm a heavy vehicle man throughout. But still, I can talk about cars from the user perspective. I look at three things: government, manufacturer, society. That's me and you, all of us. The government has done its bit, it can do some more. Manufacturers have also done their bit, can also do more. From coming to the society, I feel we have done very, very less as individuals. Government has mandated many things. Manufacturers have given them. Manufacturers have given many things which are not even mandated. But in the right spirit, we have to use it, which we don't do it. As long as we are not disciplined, no amount of legislation, no amount of regulation, no amount of technology will help us. The moment you go to Singapore, you don't spit on the roads. The moment you land here, you behave in a different way. You are back home. This will not help us. So again, when it comes to as a user, I sometimes buy vehicles just for showing off also. But sometimes, yes, I need that as well. I can ask you, why do you need this hall? Why do we need so much of AC? Can we not discuss all these things which are less energy consuming environment? We could have done it. We don't do it. I don't say that we are showing off, but still, we could have done it in a more energy efficient manner. And how many houses lights are lit throughout the house, and there is only one person sitting in the center of the house, like it doesn't go anywhere else. Same thing is happening with automobiles also. You have one vehicle, two vehicles, three vehicles, but we are this is on one side. On the other side, we are very cost sensitive. When we want to buy, if I have to buy Bose system in my car, then it's a different price I would pay. Otherwise, I will pay a different price. I am also sensitive about it, what I wanted it. So when you see all the three things, government, manufacturer and society, I think as society, as individual, we have to do much more. All the other two have done a lot. Let us not blame on both of them. I don't want to disagree with Anumita saying that government should do. Yes, they should do, but there is much more that we as individuals have to do. Let us do our bit.
Can I respond to that? It's very important because I think here we are really talking about establishing responsibilities of different stakeholders. Clearly, government has a role to play where they are going to set the terms of technology improvement by setting standards. On the other hand, yes, consumers also have the responsibility to maintain their vehicles well, right, which is a big issue today, and at the same time make the right choices. Now, just keep one thing in mind, that it is possible to make right choices and empowered choices only when you have the information with you. Otherwise, as a consumer, how do I make a choice what model to buy if I do not know what the actual fuel efficiency level of the model is? Now, Siam had begun to declare the fuel efficiency model of its various cars, models and make, but they have stopped it now. Now, what is very important is that you need to put out in the public domain good information to improve public choices, the consumer choices. At the same time, there is also a big role of the taxation, that how much you are paying in form of taxes and road pricing based on the fuel efficiency, emissions, and the size and the weight of the car. Now, this kind of signals are very important to improve the efficiency and optimization of consumer choices. On the other hand, it is true that while we need to be more responsible about maintaining our vehicles, there also now has to be by law establishment of the manufacturer's responsibility for the in-use compliance during the lifetime of the vehicle on the road. These regulations do not exist today. Today, the manufacturer's responsibility ends at the factory gate. The moment you have sold the car, the vehicle, you are no longer responsible for its emissions or any other inherent manufacturing defect. Therefore, the emissions warranty and a recall program, which Maheshwar committee had already recommended for adoption, must be put in place right away. I think so therefore it is important that stakeholder-wise, we should be able to establish these responsibilities.
Professor Amey, would like to get your thoughts as well. I mean, shifting from environment to fuel price hike that we are seeing, like there is no tomorrow. What about alternative fuel sources?
So, let me give one example of a distant relative who just bought a car. So, he bought a car and he immediately put CNG system on top of it, the aftermarket. What I feel, and this is actually borrowing from a senior faculty's statement once, that India is actually very environmentally conscious society, indirectly. We recycle our papers, newspapers, right? We try to carpool as much as possible. We do that as a society. But at the end of the day, it goes down to how much am I paying. Now, at least I know in a lot of university settings and even in some of the OEMs, a lot of research has been done in terms of alternative fuels. But if you think about ethanol, now again this story comes from the US. There was a big ethanol craze out in the US in the last decade, and it died down. And the reason was, when you do a well-to-wheel analysis, of the impact on the environment, it ended up being that ethanol was more causing more harm to the environment rather than doing any good at the current state of affairs with oil production, right? Because to grow ethanol, right, or to grow soybean or whatever, you have to irrigate it in such a way that it gives you a good crop, and all that requires energy, right? So electric vehicles, as this was mentioned, again the recycling part and all those things do matter. There's one more thing which always bothers me, is this not in my backyard. So even if the whole country shifts to electric, where is the energy going to come from? And you would have to set up nuclear power plants, and then are you ready to set it up right behind your house? You are not. So to some extent there are different technologies that we have to rely on, and as I can only talk about educational institutes who are indeed putting some or the other effort in renewable fuels as well as alternative essentially power sources, and so the effort has to be a joint venture, and I hope in the next decade we keep doing this. One more thing I want to mention about is my own experience with conventional engines. More or less India has lost the race in trying to come up with newer and newer conventional engines, because it's a very capital intensive development, and it's cheaper to just buy it from some of the developed countries. But when we go to electric vehicles, it's kind of an open game, because not everyone has the solution, and we can quickly get into the business. So I'm not saying it's a complete solution, but that's something which we need to invest more on. And we also think in a slightly different way. For example, Electrotherm, I know that they are using lead acid batteries, which is not what the European or the US companies want to use. They want to use lithium ion batteries, and you would think that they are lighter and better, but is it really true? Right? Is it really true that it's going to give you more benefit than cause harm? And all these things need to be addressed out and ironed out.
Arun, you would like to add to that?
Yeah. I would agree with you, Professor, in one point and disagree on the other. Agree in the sense that in India we are using lead acid battery because for Indian customer capital cost is very important, and we have systems to recycle the battery. So therefore from that point of view we are in lead acid and we stay committed to that. And I would disagree with you the amount of energy which will require to run the electric vehicles, because typically electric vehicles are charged at the night time when your power plants are running at inefficiency levels. You know, your efficiency is around 95 to 98% for a power plant, and during the night time they come to around 90% or 88%. So if you have electric vehicles on the road, there was a study done when this National Electric Mobility Mission Plan was being worked out. So they found that they don't even have to worry about whatever planning they were doing for 2020, considering the GDP growth rate of 8% for the decade. So there was not an incremental delta, 1 megawatt extra power required. Whatever was planned was sufficient if there were 20% vehicles on the road electric. So we don't need to worry on that front.
Yeah, I completely agree with that finer detail of analysis, and that is perfectly fine. But I was just trying to raise this concern that, or the thought, as you had, or it was already pointed out, that electric vehicles are going to solve all the pollution. It's not. They are just taking it out to someone else's house. That's it.
The other thing in the when it comes to when it comes to battery, as you mentioned, between lead acid and lithium ion, since I work in developing a battery management for this, there are certain areas where your lithium ion is much more useful, and it can lead to much more efficiencies because you can charge it faster, and it is lighter, of course, and that saves the energy. And now coming to his point, as he mentioned about electricity being used in the night when the plants are running inefficient, I think that is also to do with the concept what is coming up, and where again in India can really make good strides is a smart grid. So can we know, okay, when my energy is available but not using it, and then I can program my vehicle to get charged during that time. So absolutely, as you mentioned, 2020 we don't have to worry at all about the electricity, because we'll be in fact utilizing it more better. One more point I wanted to react what Anumita has mentioned earlier, and since I worked in that area, so I thought I will mention really more. These 2 points, one is from the government side, what you are mentioning is about onboard diagnostics, and they call it as IUMPR, in use monitoring performance ratio. So for those who are not aware what happens in US or in Europe, that the manufacturer of a vehicle has to ensure that your vehicle is not only fine when it is out of production line, but when it is on the road also there has to be no fault in the vehicle, and if there is a fault in the vehicle you have to go and repair it. So they have a system, I mean it is entirely software driven, where your legislator can actually connect to your vehicle and check that if there is a fault of your pressure sensor which can lead to a higher emission, then you cannot drive a vehicle on the road. So that is certainly should come in India, and it should get mandated.
OBD2 is mandatory from April 2013.
Yes.
Already. For new vehicles it is mandated from April 2012. For that is existing models it is from 2013. Already mandatory.
But I guess this is OBD2 update they have created. So I don't know if IUMPR is going to be also part of this OBD2.
And the biggest lacuna here is the enforcement. Lot of things.
Yeah.
You talk about simple things like seat belt. There is no enforcement.
Yes.
You don't wear because as a society you don't have a commitment towards that. Police will not catch you. When he catches you, first of all, instead of 50 rupees per fine with bill, you give 10 rupees and get away. So many things are there. So as long as the enforcement, again it comes to government, is also a set of citizens like us only. As long as we are not disciplined, no amount of anything is going to be useful.
I completely agree. I mean that is the base part, and the base mentality of all of us have to, as a nation, has to change. That yes, if I am polluting, I am really doing something wrong and I should go back. I mean, as you mentioned, all these enforcement is really a big issue, and for a country like India, huge country, we have to find a way out for that.
Well, the discussion is definitely heating up. I'm sure even the audience is getting curious, and if you all have any questions, please raise your hands.
I would like to speak about the electricity issue that you mentioned. We have enough electricity, but we are also producing electricity from coal in the India, majority of part of it. Then it is also making pollution. So we are thinking for the sustainable development, but it's not serving the purpose by electric cars.
So there are two ways of looking at it. One is that it is not that you're fulfilling your electricity requirement today. Government of India has a 2020 electric plan also, as per which they have to set up more power plants. When I say power plants, it doesn't mean all coal-based plants. There's some gas-based plants, there's some nuclear plants, and then there are conventional energy, which is wind energy, and this solar energy. You know, Government of Gujarat has already set up 600 megawatts of solar park this year. So effectively, if you are putting up power plants, so those plants will generate energy in 2020. So whatever you have planned for your electricity development in 2020, that time if you have 20% of electric vehicles on the road, which is two-wheelers, four-wheelers, trucks, everything, at that time you will not need any extra capacity to run these vehicles. So the thought initially was, which Professor probably anticipated, that if I have 20% of my vehicles electric, then I need to have an extra capacity, which planners would not have envisaged, because today we are less than 1%. So from that point of view, you don't need to put up any extra capacity, because during the night time you're running your plants at underutilized level. So you increase your your capacity, you are at efficient levels, and the surplus energy which is generated can be used by vehicles. Second part is, if you all in today's scenario, all your power, around 80% of your power is coming from coal-based plants. Coal-based plants generate almost 800 grams of CO2 per kilowatt. That's an estimate which I made. If your vehicle which is running on a road, which is giving a typical mileage of 40 to 50 kilometers per liter, generates around 3,300 grams per kilowatt or the kilometer you travel. So effectively you are still running 1/4 you're doing only 1/4 pollution from the CO2 terms. If everything is coal, now if you go to solar, conventional energy or nuclear, then this emission is not taking place. That is the first part. Second part is, if you look at from the energy perspective, Mother Nature has given you a certain amount of energy. So with 1 kilowatt, there was a reference to ethanol which Professor just made. Tesla is a company partly owned by Ford. They've done a study. You go to web, you will find a Tesla report, 21st century. They've done study on various powertrains. So there was first ethanol powertrain, then there was a gasoline powertrain, diesel powertrain, and pure electric powertrain. From well to wheel efficiency, what Professor just mentioned, well to wheel is energy from the source to the energy on the wheel. So this is well to wheel. So from that perspective, ethanol was giving 0.32 kilometer per kilowatt hour, 0.31 kilometer per megajoule. Diesel was 0.48 kilometer per megajoule. Gasoline was 0.51 kilometer per megajoule, and electric was 1.14 kilometer per megajoule. So effectively, the energy which Mother Nature has given, we all have studied, we are engineers, right? So energy is not created nor destroyed. There's a certain amount of energy which is given by nature to you. So you're using that energy best in an electric vehicle. So I hope I answered your question completely. Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? Any other car enthusiast here?
Excuse me, I want to ask Anumita ma'am a question. Ma'am, you have...
We can't hear you.
Excuse me, ma'am. I want to ask Anumita ma'am a question. Like you work very much on Delhi CNG. So, if any customer buys a CNG vehicle or converts a car into CNG, like they are finding it very difficult to find a CNG station nearby, and it's same with the electric cars. Like even if there is an electric car, there is a lack of charging stations. So even if the very advanced technology is there in very effective CNG engine or very effective electric vehicle, there are not enough charging stations and CNG stations. So how will we address this problem?
Yeah, I will take up this question. Yeah, so this is, I mean, what you said, what you pointed out is very correct. We have CNG, we have LPG in between, and we don't find the stations out there. That's why in the beginning I mentioned that it is a very much a collaborative effort between the government, between the companies who are developing the technology and the users. So, I mean, even if we develop a technology and from the government side, if we don't get infrastructure or get an investment in the infrastructure, that is of no use. And that's where in India, since we are in the beginning phase, we have a better chance to work in collaboration. And that's what he mentioned about the National Electric Mobility Mission. So like these programs are certainly going to, work on this and see, and you can see the results.
Anyone else?
Sir, can hydrogen be a convenient option for the fuel? Alternative fuel.
Okay, you want to respond? Okay. Yeah, okay, I can respond. If I understood your question is about hydrogen vehicle, right? So as I mentioned, there are multiple technologies which are evolving, and hydrogen is of course one of the very promising technology to come in, because you have a zero pollution vehicle. But then there are a lot of issues to make it really practical. One is again coming back to economy, whether it is economical to bring it on the road. Then there are a lot of issues related to safety, because see, one has to think like when a car comes on the road, it remains there for 15-20 years. So how do you ensure that it is safe and it is not causing hazard or safety to others? So there are a lot of aspects of the technology. So hydrogen is one of these, but I think it will take again a long time, and it may see a light of the day or it may not. So we don't know.
I'll just add a little more to it. So again, in the last decade, there was a big jump in trying to go to fuel cells. Okay, hydrogen-based fuel cells. Now, I'll give you a historic perspective. Fuel cells have been out there in usage, in practical usage, since 1950s. Electric vehicle was in 1903 in New York. Okay, so every technology comes out and works successfully only when probably God wants it to. But going on to a technical aspect of it, one of the issues with hydrogen in transportation is the safety, right? So you have to have a lot of safety systems involved. Second thing is again energy density. So to carry the hydrogen on board, you have to carry it on a compressed, in a compressed form. In a compressed form. And if you again think about it, compressing requires energy. So that's again where you take a hit.
Alright, so with that, we're completely out of time. But before we end this discussion, I would like a 1 or a 2-line tip that you can offer to all our consumers out there, because they're going to be consumers, what they can do to protect the environment or the fuel, how they can really save the fuel consumption. Just a 1 or 2 line as your closing suggestion.
As far as consumers are concerned, I'll just say that, we have to understand that we have to redefine our aspirations. So it's not the big car, the fuel guzzlers, that should define our aspiration. Environmentally responsible choices are important, and we have to understand that the technology can be innovated to give you the same sense of glamour and aspiration, even with a very clean and fuel efficient and almost zero emission technology. So we have to make the choices to create the market for the right innovation and the scaling up of the technology application, which is urgently needed today.
Professor Amey, your thoughts? Quick thoughts.
I guess aspirations are there for everyone, right? And I wouldn't think about holding people's aspirations back. But in everyday life, you can think about one step that you can take in order to reduce your fuel consumption. I guess that would itself be a big step.
Good. When we talk about vehicle and energy, we talk about well to wheel. I've been all the time talking about human beings. I would talk about womb to tomb. Let us resolve that we will be, as educated people, we will be honest to ourselves, we will be disciplined to ourselves, so that machine and environment, whatever improvements are being made by government or the manufacturers, will be properly used by us, and we will be safe ourselves, we will be healthy. So both environment as well as safety, because I am from SAFE, I have to talk about safety and environment. I am quite passionate about it. So if you all want to pledge today, please do that. You just have to be honest to yourself. That's it. Nothing great. Thank you.
Be honest to yourself is what he recommends. What about you, Mangesh?
So when I say consumer, I mean to say this young engineers who are going to be you are really poised very well to make a great impact on whatever discussion we had. So you have a whole lot of career in front of you. You can make the technology come the way you want. So I think you are the ones who can make the difference. So let's do it.
I would only say that make good choices, conscious choices, be aware that there was a generation which handed over something to us, and we'll have to hand over something to the others, and we should be able to face that. And that is from the consumer side. And as engineers, when taking up your assignments, take up assignments in area which are creating value for the society from the energy efficiency point of view. And we already have one engineer from IIT Gandhinagar in our R&D, and we hope to see many in future. Thank you. All the best.
Hello. Yeah. So with this session, we end our 3-day annual technical summit of IIT Gandhinagar, that is Amalthea'. Before we leave, I would just like to tell you some figures and important highlights about Amalthea'. We received a participation of around 8,000 students from all over Gujarat, and we had speakers from all over India, top speakers from the automobile sector as well as from the safety sector from all over the world, including Europe, USA, Singapore and Malaysia. I would like to tell you the highlights of the Auto Conclave. It was a 2-day event. On day 1, the most insightful lectures were by Siemens, delivered by MD India Mr. Nitin Nair and Asia Pacific Digital Manufacturing Head Mr. Ayappan. And also the other lecture was given by Executive Director Ford Manufacturing Tom Chakalakal. Today we had another two most insightful lectures. One was given by Chemtrol's MD Mr. Nandakumar, and the other was given by Mr. S.V. Sudarshan of SAFE and Daimler. As a part of Design Expo, there was a great educational learning experience at the Tata Nano stall. The entire Tata Nano was stripped into pieces, and each and every piece was shown. We had a fantastic design car by DC Dilip Chabaria. We had organizations like DRDO and ISRO participating. Also, we had discussions about interesting collaborations with companies Siemens, Chemtrol's, Honeywell and Ford. These companies have promised to help us set up state-of-the-art labs by providing amenities and expertise. Amalthea also had remarkable participation in the events, and all this would only be possible by our sponsors. So I would like to thank our sponsors: Index B, GSDMA, ASSE, Gujarat Industrial Development Corporation, Tata Power, Tyco, General Knowledge Society, DRDO, Reliance, State Bank of India, Union Bank of India, Taylor Francis, Monopole Colors, Berger Beckers, Tata Chemicals, Canara Bank, Gujarat Pollution Control Board, Ultratech Cement, our beverage partners Coca-Cola, Amul, hospitality partner Le Meridian. The students have put in a great amount of effort. I would like to thank all the communities, the co-group, the sponsorship committee, the auto conclave committee, exhibition committee, safety conference committee, marketing committee and hospitality. Also, there was overwhelming support by our director, faculty and all the staff members. And another thing I would like to mention, the entire event was set up by the first year and second year students. There was no involvement of the third and fourth year students, only less guidance. And we all welcome you to Amalthea 2013. Thank you.
And I would also like to thank all our panelists here. Thank you so much for being a part of this discussion.
We would like to give memento to all our speakers.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Apologies if I got
Ms. Ata ma'am,
wrong. I was just told by the students.
Sudarshan sir,
Introduction. Yeah.
Professor Amey Karnik, Ms. Mangesh sir and Arun Pratap Singh sir. And Kamya ma'am. Thank you.
Thanks. Nice. Thank you so much. Yeah, sure. Nice talking to you.